What are the three things that you need to be successful in business? I'm Morris from CreateGrowProfit.com, and today I'm speaking to Steven Greene, and he's going to tell us his framework that includes three things to succeed in business. Steven, thank you so much for being here today. Where are you calling in from?
I am in the United States in the Philadelphia, Pennsylvania area. I appreciate you having on here, Morris. Thank you. And I am looking forward to breaking this down and talking it up.
Also, you are a very experienced podcaster yourself. Just real quick, what are the two podcasts that you run yourself?
I have a podcast called the Make the Grade Experience. Make the Grade is my brand name. I have another one just called Make the Grade. I probably should differentiate them slightly more. One is about education, and because you're going to learn, hopefully in this discussion, I'm a huge proponent of sales through education. And so I talk about a lot of educational techniques. I am a career educator. I have a doctorate in education. I'm not a medical doctor. The other one is really more of a success journey clearinghouse. Anything. I don't care what your field is, whether it's sports, academics, music, life, business. Everybody's got a success story, hopefully. And I find it inspirational to help people share them. And I find it inspirational just to hear them. So that's the idea. So anybody out there has a success story, want to be on a podcast, want to be famous, or maybe we can connect. But I appreciate being here, and let's see what we can help today, Morris. That's always my goal. One of my things, I wake up, I do some meditations of it. Who can I help today? Who can I help to improve?
And what led you to this framework with particularly three things that help people succeed in business?
Well, there's a very long version of that answer, but I'm going to give you a short one. I came from a teaching background. And in teaching, it's never, you could have 25, 30 students in the classroom. And what you learn very early as a instructor, teacher, professor, whatever you are, is they're not going to learn the same. They're not all in the same place. So if you're trying to teach somebody math, for example, you may have people that are experienced and comfortable with math. You have people kind of just getting it okay. You may have people that hate it and are struggling. And you have to learn a way to reach all of them at the same time. It's challenging. And when I started to work with entrepreneurs, which is now about 13, 14 years, I was surprised it was the same thing, because everybody that was entrepreneurs was all at a different level. They were all coming from a different background, different experience, different expectations, and so on and so on. And I realized that sometimes they were great at one thing and very, very lacking in another. And it took me a little while, but essentially what crystallized in my thinking was this concept, which I call the triangle of success. Three things. So just to give them to you straight up. Number one, you have to have a product. You have to have a product that you can market and sell, hopefully at a profit, that more importantly, your ideal target audience wants to buy. And we can break that down. The second thing you need is you need a system. There are people out there that have fantastic products that nobody ever heard of. Nobody is even aware they exist, and nobody buys them because there's no system to get people interested, to open the door, and to teach people why this is a solution to their issue. And then the third thing, which is really where I started, is mentoring, is coaching, is teaching. And I look at it as an accelerant. I'm 32 years in this business, and it took me 10, 12 years, honestly, to get really good at it. And it was just because I made a lot of mistakes, and I learned how to correct them, and I learned how to improve, and I had good models, and I eventually had good mentors myself. So the three things, shortest answer: product, system, mentor.
And which are the types of entrepreneur that you work with the most nowadays?
It's two kinds. One are people who have careers or jobs, and they're trying to kind of get out of them. So maybe they're an accountant, say, or I have somebody who's a surgeon, just burn out on working for a long time. And they want to do something different. They don't want to work for someone else. They want to get into their own space and do their own business. So they want to try an entrepreneurial journey. The other type are people who kind of come from the product side. They get an idea, they get a concept, and then they want to try to bring it to market. So on one hand, you got people who want to be entrepreneurs but don't really know what they want to do with it. The other hand, you have people who have an idea but don't really know how to do it. And so I'm happy to work with both. I don't know what the percentage is, 40, 60, 50, 50, but there's plenty of both. And that's where it is right now.
Do you have an example or an example story of how you or someone that you helped found a great product to sell? What was the process like for them?
I had a friend who was a good tennis player. And one of the things that's important in tennis is getting to gripping the racket properly, right? And especially when it's hot and your hand gets sweaty. He came up with this gadget that went on the grip of the tennis racket. I'm not even sure if it was even legal. Like, I don't know if a pro in a tournament could use it. But what it did was, it was sort of like this plastic thing that you slid over the grip, and it made your hand align better. So it kind of like puts your hand in the right place, almost like kind of like a handlebar or something, like a bicycle or something. And it improved his game. It improved everybody who's playing this game that he showed it to. And so he had an idea. He had a viable idea. And I don't know how many people play tennis in the world, but a lot. So there was a market for it. His challenge was getting the word out. Now, the classic solution was, go on social, make videos, but this guy, he wasn't like a YouTube guy or an Instagram person, right? So I said, no, don't worry about you doing it. Get somebody else, get a model. I don't mean like a model, like, in a bathing suit. I mean, get somebody who can show it, who isn't you, who's not camera shy. So in that case, the issue was good idea, didn't have the channel, the system to get it out there. I can give you another case study where almost the opposite. Someone was all over social, you lots of followers, just kind of, an influencer person. What they were trying to do was kind of be an expert in local restaurants. They were trying to create this service where they would review all these restaurants, and then people could go to them and they would give them advice on what to order. It was a little of a complicated business model, but that was their problem. They had a big following, but they couldn't figure out how to package the product in a way that was marketable. It got just too complicated. Everything got overly complicated. So sometimes people have the vision and have a good product. Sometimes people have a good media, a good system, however you want to do it. It isn't just social. And you need all of them. And the other thing I'll tell you is this. You didn't ask this yet, but I'm going to take the liberty of going here. It is very, very important to understand who your ideal client is. So let's go back to the tennis grip. Like, who's this person's ideal client? Well, the obvious thing would be people who play tennis. Well, lots of people play tennis. People play who are serious, people are casual, people are on school teams, people very, very competitive. So I said, no, we got to break it down more. What niche do you want to go for? So I said, here's the key. What problem does this actually solve? Does a professional tennis player have trouble with their grip? Probably not, or they wouldn't be a professional. Does an advanced tennis player have trouble? Probably not. Who's going to have the most trouble are probably the weekend players, or the ones that don't play enough to really, hone their game that much. So that's where we try to identify. And then you say, who are they? Are they men? Are they women? How old are they? Where do they live? Where do they hang out? Where do they get their information from? So the original thing was we targeted, I should say but I helped women between 40 and 60. A lot of them were playing in leagues. There's a lot of tennis clubs around where he lived who were, good enough to play, could be competitive, but had trouble stepping their game up. Where are they? How do you find them? Facebook, Instagram. They're not going to be on TikTok. Maybe now TikTok's growing a lot more. They're not going to be on Reddit. They're not going to be in some of these more specialized kind of places. So the idea is you got to fit your product, your offering, your book, whatever it is, your physical product, your service, with your client, your ideal client, understand where they're getting their information, where they're getting influenced, and then you go into that channel, and that's where you try to meet them right there. It's simple to say, it's not even that hard to do, but it's hard to do well consistently.
That is such a good example, Steven. So if step one in the triangle for success is having something to sell, how do we know that we have something to sell? We're sitting on something good.
Classically, like if I had an MBA, which I don't, if I had taken business school classes, which I haven't, but I think if you went to like an MBA, if you went to a business school, the answer would be market research. Do a test study, which is basically the same thing. Go, who would be interested in this product? Make a prototype, have them try it out, have them test it out. But most people at the entrepreneurial point don't have a marketing budget to do that. And it's the same amount of work to find those people to try to sell them your product to a degree as it is to try to reach those people to get them to tell you if they like your product or not. They'll tell you if you like it or not, especially after they buy it anyway. So it's important to get feedback. But in the classic sense, in like a true business sense, the answer would be to do market research. Now, even if you're selling, even if you're in the niche, you still want to be doing research to find out, because you can always improve something. You can also accessorize. You can start to sell other products. For example, my tennis person. Okay, now the people got their grip down. And by the way, the idea was you would put it on and play for a little while, and then you would take it off, and you would sort of have this muscle memory where you wouldn't need it anymore. But what's the next level, right? Lessons, right? So, okay, I'm improving my game. I'm more competitive. I'm enjoying it more because I'm playing better. Oh, listen, hey, by the way, you bought Grippies or whatever. I forget, Grippy. I forget what he called it. I should know it. And, I was a semi-professional tennis player. I played for 4 years in college. I am offering lessons, live or during COVID, virtually. How would you like to take lessons? So now you have somebody who's bought your product. They believe in you. Now you're saying, hey, I'll coach you for, whatever, teach you how to serve, teach you how to backhand, whatever, things like that. So once you get people to believe in you, once you identify it, it's great. Then what do? You say, hey, client, you love the lesson, you love the grip. You got any friends I can talk to? You ask for referrals. So what's most powerful? Always word of mouth, right? So it all kind of goes together. And I believe it starts with having a viable product and a service. But the other two are so critical, you can't really talk about one without the other two. Or else you just have a good product, you had a great idea, and nobody knows about it to purchase it. The assumption is this, and I don't know who's out there listening, but if you're an entrepreneur, just ask yourself this question. Am I an entrepreneur just to keep myself busy so I can at night say, hey, I kept busy all day? Or are you an entrepreneur to say, hey, how much did I put in the bank today? Right? I mean, it's a capitalist venture, right? To be an entrepreneur is trying to make money. Can we help people along the way? Absolutely. Can we bring people up with us and carry people along with us? Absolutely. But in the end, the scorecard is basically your bottom line and how profitable you can be. So that's for most people's driver.
I love your answer to this because, especially in marketing and selling a product, marketing is a huge part of that. So actions speak louder than words. And we can survey people, we can ask people for feedback, and we're going to get all kinds of answers. But ultimately, are people willing to buy it? Are people taking action? That is the best market research, in my opinion.
It is. Sales is a great proof of concept. You could have a dumb idea, you could have a lousy product, but if you sell a lot of them, it justifies it.
And then you can reinvest and make it better.
No, absolutely. Most people, if you have a physical product, it basically has to be good enough to at least get the job done, right? But I've seen people, entrepreneurs, business people, no matter, who have kind of like just okay, like they'll write an ebook that's good, not fantastic, it's not earth shaking, it's good enough. I help people with these things, and I help them write them, whatever. And I'm saying, you know what? Do you think you could improve this chapter? Nah, it's good enough. And they'll sell. And they're like, well, why should I change it? People are buying it. So not everybody's a perfectionist. Not everybody's like OCD about it in sort of a good way. But I think that's the key. There's so many levels that we could get into on this. I really want to keep on point. So, but let me just throw this out. So if you're a wannabe entrepreneur, you're an inspiring entrepreneur, ask yourself, do I have a product that solves something or a service that solves a problem? Do I know who needs it? Who's my ideal client? Do I know where to reach them, where to communicate with them? That's kind of all number one. Then number two is, what's my system to reach them? Do I want to be sitting there for 6 hours a day making videos, going on that? You want automation, right? And then the third thing is, how am I going to get help? Do I want to spend 5 years figuring this out by myself? Or do I want to get somebody who's been there, done it, who can teach it to me in an hour or two or a day or a week? It's all about time. Time is really ultimately, I think everybody agrees, your ultimate, most important commodity, right? So from my end, and I'm not sure how you feel about this, Mars, you can just tell me, but I see my role as a mentor, as a coach, because I can look at it from a step back. Sometimes people are so involved in what they're doing, they're not looking for answers. I got this idea. I'm just going to push. I'm going to make it work just out of sheer force. Sometimes it doesn't work. You can't drill through a cement wall with a spoon. Like sometimes it just isn't going to work, right? So sometimes you have to be honest with yourself. Sometimes you got to retool your product. Sometimes you got to reinvestigate your clients. Sometimes you figure out, hey, maybe I'm not in the wrong media or I'm in the wrong channel to get with these people. Maybe I'm priced poorly. Maybe it's way, way too expensive. There's a lot of places that you can get gated. Let's use the word. It can stop. There's a lot of places it can break down. You have to constantly be reevaluating. The other thing that can be frustrating, just spoiler alert, entrepreneurs, sometimes you get something that'll work great for weeks, months, even a couple of years, and all of a sudden the world changes around you. I've had people, we've created ebooks or we've created digital products, and they're selling great, 10 a day, 20 a day, 5 a day, and all of a sudden sales start to dry up. What's going on? Well, the world changes. Look, the last 6 months, a year, the adaptation of AI is tremendous, right? People, it's so easy to do research now, especially if you teach yourself how to do it, which, by the way, I have a client that just wrote an ebook on the topic, which I'm helping him. I help him write it and we're helping to market. But the idea is nothing's static. Nothing is fixed in the entrepreneurial journey. There's always something that's going to change. There's always something that's going to happen that you didn't anticipate. Yeah, if you're not flexible, you're probably going to take a hit somewhere along the line.
I love this clip from Warren Buffett when they ask him, what do you recommend to young or to new entrepreneurs? And he says, focus on delighting your customer. Don't think about satisfying your customer, delight your customer. And then he said, no business has ever gone out of business if they have delighted customers.
That's true. People will stick with you. I'll give you another perspective on that exact same thought. So think about this. If it isn't money cost, it's time cost to acquire clients. Okay. There's a cost to acquire clients. Even if you're not doing paid ads, you're doing all organic, it's still going to take time. So you have to invest in order to get a client, and you have to build relationship with these clients. So what's easier? This is a rhetorical question, but you can answer it anyway. What's easier, to sell more to an existing client or to go out and try to find a new client to sell anything to, right? I think the answer is pretty obvious. So you're exactly right. If you have a happy client, I wrote a book. I sell it to Morris. Morris like, oh my God, this book is tremendous, unbelievable. I can't wait to get the next book. Well, when the next book's ready, who am I going to go to first? All the people that love my first one. But what if I have a shabby book, or it's like, okay, or it's just another book, that people buy books, they put them on the shelf and they read them and they read half of them, end of story. When you go in the second time, they're going to say, hey, you know what? I got your first one. Wasn't really worth the $20 I paid, $50, whatever. Yeah, no thanks. So if you do not invest in your client base, in your community, in the people that have believed in you enough to pay you, even if it's $1, you're missing out. It's a mistake, I think, business people make in general. The only exception to that maybe are franchises. And that's not really why we got together to talk. But, like, I don't know about where you live, but, you got McDonald's, stuff like that. They don't really do a ton. I don't want to be out of school. I don't eat there. But, you walk into McDonald's, do you feel warm and fuzzy? Do you feel like, oh, I really think they appreciate me being here? I mean, maybe the person at the counter is friendly, but it's like you're there because you like the food. You're there because it's like it's just comfortable to be there. But an entrepreneur, you do not have the luxury of assuming that just because somebody's trusted you once to pick up on one of your products, they're going to do it again. And you got to nurture that. And to use Warren Buffett's term, you have to delight them. It's an excellent quote, and it's a very appropriate quote. So to me, that's part of the system. The obvious thing about the system is client acquisition, but the not obvious thing about the system is client retention. And part of client retention is, I guess, client delight. I kind of like that. I haven't used that word in this context, but it's right. It's a good way to put it. And then building that up. So in my case, if I can take it this way, I have my own client base. I have several products I can offer them, but one of them is a community. So I have a community, people can join. There's a free level. There's also a VIP level they can pay. where they get different level of service. And it gives them a chance to, I call it the incubator sometimes, kind of field test stuff with other entrepreneurs. Gives them a chance to have some access to me. I do 1 or 2 live events a week for them, Q&As, things like that. So some people take advantage of it more than others, but it's there. Obviously, the VIP one or the premium level where they're paying is a higher level of interaction, higher level of service, and that's offered as well. But to me, it comes from the same mindset, which is taking care of your client base and making them feel appreciated. You got to get to them. You got to develop them first. That's not the thing you're going to do first day in business.
You really fully embrace that in everything you do, because even just the interactions that you and I had, your follow-up after our first meeting, it's very rare that people stay in touch and are so friendly and open and supportive the way you've been, and we've only just met basically.
To me, it just makes so much sense, right? Like, or why wouldn't anybody be appreciative if somebody's going to do me a favor, right? So how many episodes do you have?
You're number 80.
Wow, I didn't realize. Yeah. So seriously, I hope you like what I'm saying, but go check out some other ones because they're equally good or maybe better. Anyhow, we meet, we have a little chat, little kind of green room talk, we're going to talk about, and hey, you're in. I'm like, awesome. Why wouldn't I appreciate that? Why wouldn't I thank him, right? And take some fraction of your day and just try to make sure your clients are happy or your business relationships. Somebody gives you a referral, let them know you appreciate it. You never know who's going to help you, and you never know who you're going to need and when you're going to need it. When you need a favor, you haven't done anything to help somebody else. Why would they if they're too busy? We all got to help each other out. What I try to convince entrepreneurs of is to get away from the slice of the pie market share mentality. Just like, what's enough? How much is enough? How much is not enough, right? Like, obviously, everybody's got to pay bills. You got to pay your rent. You got to pay this and that. But does it really matter if you have 300 clients versus 302? So it's an interesting psychology when you get to that point. It's things that people sometimes just have to think about. But to get back to really our main core thing here is what I hope I've provoked people to think about is analyze what your product is. Who are you providing it to? What problem does it solve? And I'm repeating things really for emphasis. How are you going to get out there? What's your system or systems? And then who's helping you to learn this? This is my triangle. Your product or service, your system, your mentoring. It's easy to package. Actually, I'll see what it is here. Can you see that? Look at that, huh? So this is there's a book I've written on this, and it's one of the possible covers, one of the artists.
So you've written the book and you're now in the process of designing the cover to publish it. Is that right?
Yes. It's an ebook / course. What I'm trying to do is basically create a sort of evergreen version of myself. So I've poured a lot into this. I've done a lot of courses. I didn't want it to be just another course. I wanted it to be based on experience. I cite a lot of case studies. Well, I'll tell you one other thing. Entrepreneurs, don't be afraid to give stuff away. Now, you're probably saying, well, that doesn't make any sense. My whole idea is to make money. Why would I give something away? Because I'll tell you why. Number one, it provides value. It creates value. So you want to hear a little story?
Well, wait, before you share the story, I do want to plug 2 really, really important things. So first of all, you've talked a lot about books, and especially for, I work with a lot of coaches, and especially for coaches, I think writing a book is huge. And you have a free 7-step process. If they just follow the 7 steps, at the end of it, they have a really good book. So I wanted to share that so that they can go click that link. It's
getgreen.net. It'll take you to a basic landing page. Put in your name, your email, whatever, and I will swiftly send you. It's an hour-long video. I have helped literally 1,800 to 1,900 people create digital products, whether it's a book, an ebook, a webinar, a podcast, you name it. It's all the same process. It's 7 steps. And in this video, it's me being recorded doing a workshop live, teaching this to a group of students who paid actually a pretty hefty chunk of cash to be in it. And I'm giving it away. And at the end, 100% guarantee, you have a viable, marketable, if you do it right, product.
What was the story you were going to share before we wrap it up?
In the month of November 2024, there were 119 downloads of this video. You want to guess? How many people didn't watch it at all?
I would say 50%.
Ooh, pretty close. 57%. So of the other 40% how many clicked it and watched for 5 minutes or less?
3/4 out of those. So
it was about a half again. Of everybody, about 7 made it through the whole hour. Now, you could say the video sucked, it was boring, it wasn't really what I wanted. If you want to be in this game, you want to be in this entrepreneurial game or this business game, you got to take it seriously. I can joke about it a little bit because I like working with people on a kind of a social-ish level. We get serious, obviously, when we need to, but it's just, you can't do it as a hobby. You can't get in and say, yeah, I'm going to be serious today. I'm going to be kind of not so serious the next 2 days. You got to buy into yourself. You got to invest in yourself. Don't be that person who says, I'm going to do this, and then cheat yourself out of the opportunity by not really following through. You're not hurting me, you're not hurting Morris, you're not hurting anybody else. You're really just hurting yourself because you're the one who's missing out.
it is so much easier when you have support. And that brings me to your community. You said you have a free community, you have a VIP community. Where can people check out your community and start joining for free?
You can put all that in the show notes. People can just email me directly. We can go from there. You can go onto my social media, message me there. It's all invitation only. You can't join the community without me sort of giving you a link personally.
If you're a coach, if you liked creating digital products, go watch Steven's 7-step video. That's going to be in the links. And if you want support, if you want to be part of a community, send him an email and reach out to him there. Steven, this was awesome. Thank you so much.